All right, everybody, we're getting started with the Boost Your Marketing Seminar for May. I'm looking forward to having everybody here today and all the people on our recording. So we're going to be starting in just a minute here and get everybody logged in as we go. We've got a lot of things to cover today, and I'm really excited about having everybody registered that was it was pre-registered, and we'll be getting going in just a second. All right, we're looking forward to getting going today on the Boost Your Marketing workshop that we're doing for everybody. And we're going to have some people live and some people on the recording. And you can certainly look in the chat for asking some questions as we go along the way. And if you're watching the replay, make sure you look in the, we're going to be posting along with the video, a link for you to connect with one of our experts at Rev Marketing. Might be me, it might be somebody else, about having a 15-minute discussion about your specific marketing, because everybody's marketing is going to be different. So let's start with that. Then make sure you go to the link that will be on the page with the connection to having a specific discussion about your marketing. So today's topic is going to be very specific, but the goals for each of these workshops every month and the webinars every month is going to be to help everybody get a 50% increase. And how can we talk about that? Well, if you get twice as many leads, if nothing else changes, that should be a 50% increase in your marketing or in your business results. But also, some of our webinars are going to be on how to get potentially 50% better show rates in your business. That would be a 50% increase in your business. And if some of our webinars are on getting a 50% better closing rates in your sales, that would be a 50% increase in your business. And you kind of start adding all those up, and this can make a massive impact in your business. So it doesn't take a lot to get these kind of increases. And we'll show you how to do that in a few different ways as we go through this. So one of these ways is understanding the big picture of marketing. And in the big picture of marketing online is most of our focus, but don't think that's the only focus that we have here as we talk about these things during the next few minutes here as we go through this. And today we're just going to talk about, and as we do these, we're going to talk about one key element, so you can just focus on that one for the next 30 days until we do our next workshop on the third Wednesday of the month. So here's some guys that we work with. You can look up some real results that we've had. This one's 80 people in his business came in as a result of one campaign that we did. This is another campaign that we did that generated a lot of traffic. Many different results that we've had in different businesses. But the big picture that you've got to think about is from last workshop that we did is fix your website. If you haven't done that, then this webinar will give you results, but it wouldn't give you the results that we'd really like you to get. So that's one thing that we want to make sure we don't skip over. Make sure your website is fantastic and has a lot of content in it. We can certainly refer you to the last webinar for helping with that. And now we're going to look at some other pieces of one of these things on the list. Today, we're going to talk about Google and Facebook and paid marketing and how to make sure that you get the best results possible from that. So if we look at all the marketing you're doing, as we just mentioned, if you don't have your website right, then all the online work in the world may fall on a poor, if you think about this website being not a solid foundation at the bottom, if it's, if it's only this big, if it's only taking care of this much of what it needs to be, then your online marketing might fall on kind of an empty space if it's not very robust website. We just don't want to leave that alone and say, do all this other marketing. We're going to help you fix the other type of marketing we do. And even offline marketing. If you do really good in offline marketing, maybe you're a company that has a really good, in some businesses, circle of influence with other businesses and other companies around you. You might do a really good job with that. Then guess what? About 80% of people are going to look you up. And when they look you up, if they, your website isn't very robust, it's only maybe this metaphorically big, they won't find you, they'll find somebody else. So every time I do this, I like to mention, even though that's not our topic today, don't forget about your website. We're not trying to, it doesn't mean we're trying to sell you anything in particular, although we do work on websites for people. This is something that we don't want to miss. We've had a lot of people that have really good success in their marketing, but they haven't made this step, fix this part of it, and that would triple or quadruple what the results are. So anyway, let's get moving to our topic today. Today it's Facebook and Google and why or when you're throwing money away. Now, I don't want you to think that what the big focus is never use Facebook and Google. We're not telling you never to use Facebook and Google. In fact, it is okay to spend money. There's lots of things you can spend money on. One of them is Facebook. And we'll talk about how to do that correctly. The other one would be Google. And we'll talk about how to do that correctly. But there's lots of other things. Some businesses, LinkedIn. Some businesses would be, in fact, most businesses should have some content online. And that can be video, audio, text, photo, or graphic content. There should be lots and lots of this online for every business. And you can spend money on that, getting that out there, getting it distributed across the internet. That will help your business a lot. And you may hear the word SEO. There should be search engine optimization for all of this stuff, which relates to content. So we won't get into the details on that. You could do direct mail. If you do that correctly, that can still work really well. You can become an author. That's a great idea. Or what we'd like to term an influencer. So there's ways that those two things work together. They can be a little bit separate or they can be together, but becoming an author is a great marketing tool. You can absolutely get a lot of value out of that. You could, for some businesses, Instagram would be important. Making sure your reputation is important. And it's worth, in some cases, spending money on that. Press releases. If you haven't taken a screenshot of this, it's a good idea to. Making sure you're important in news, and lots more stuff. I don't want to make the list of all the different marketing things you can do. And within each of these, there's a bunch of different varieties of things. So we're going to focus on Facebook and Google, and it is okay to spend money. In fact, it's a good idea. and we'll talk about why it's a good idea to spend money instead of not spend money. What we don't want you to do is that for all of these, you could waste a lot of money. And we'll talk about when you're wasting money and how you can make sure you're not wasting money. And I talk to many, many, many business owners in lots of different industries. And we hear a lot of times, oh, I tried that, whether it's Facebook or Google or something else, and it just didn't work. I tried Google and it didn't work. I tried Facebook and it didn't work. And I both kind of like that and hate that at the same time. I like it because they're not spending money on things that weren't effective. That's a good decision to make. If it wasn't effective, don't do it. But it's also something I don't like because they missed an opportunity to do it correctly and get good results from it. Now, some of these things probably aren't going to be good for certain industries. They may not be good for certain, sometimes not good for certain parts of the country, sometimes not good for certain markets. And that's fine. That's what we find out from testing and evaluation, if you know how to do that correctly. But it's not generally a good idea to just throw something out and say, well, that doesn't work. Sometimes these types of marketing strategies work for a while and then they stop working. That may have to do with a lot of different things. Some things, for example, Groupon worked really well in some industries a few years ago. Groupon doesn't work nearly as effectively now as it did a while back because it was newer and it was more of an unusual thing. And we have to pay attention to that. Does it mean it doesn't work at all? No, it still works and you should use it in certain ways if you do it correctly. So how do we decide how to do it correctly? Well, let's talk about something first. Let me clear the screen here. The first thing that you need to make sure you always pay attention to is your return on investment. So whenever you're doing any marketing, the key piece is what return on investment we get. So what that means is, I think most of you probably know this, but what it's going to mean is how much money you made versus how much money you spent. So how much you made divided by how much you spent. Now, we don't want this to be one-to-one. If you spent $1, we don't want you to make $1 back. But if you did spend $1, you make $1 back, you kind of broke even. So that wouldn't be, it's not what we want, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But generally, we want this to be 10-to-1 or 20-to-1 for most businesses that we work with. There's some businesses where the return on investment can be a percentage of the product value if you were selling physical products. But for a lot of the businesses that we work with, what you need to figure out is, and many people don't know this, and we won't spend all our time on this. This is like a whole nother webinar, but your lifetime customer value. Your lifetime customer value should be something that you have know a number for. So let's say my lifetime customer value, maybe I'm a restaurant owner, and if a customer comes and has a meal with me with their family, maybe they spend $200. And I know that customer probably comes back 3 times a year. And they generally come visit me for 3 years and then maybe they don't come back again. So that'd be $200 times 3 is $600 times 3 more years, it'd be $1,800. That's an easy enough. It'd be $200 every time they visit, times 3 visits a year, times 3 years. And maybe I figure they get tired of me after that, which would be 200 times 3 is 600, times 3 is 1,800. I know people don't like to do math, but maybe that's the value. That would be my estimated lifetime customer value. Now, do some people come once and never come again? Sure. Do some people come, they're loyal customers and they come, once a month and they keep coming for 20 years? Maybe. So it's supposed to be an average. So if I know my lifetime customer value is about Apologize about the screen, guys. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. It's about 1,800. I think I have the wrong tool in, so we'll go back to. Okay. So what I know is if I want about a 10-to-1 return on investment, about a 21 return on investment, I know that I can spend for 10-to-1 return, I can spend about $180. If I spend $180 and I make $1,800 every time I get a new customer, then I have a 10-to-1 return on investment. Every time I spend $180, I'm going to make, on the average, sometimes more, sometimes less, on the average, $1,800. If I spend half that, $90, I'm going to have a 20-to-1 return on investment. If I spend $90 and I get a new client, then I'm going to have 20-to-1 return on investment. So we have to know this number to determine what our marketing spend is going to be and to make sure that we do our marketing properly. So this is a little bit of a side note. I know our topic here today, we're going to get into it right now, is Facebook and Google and how we're throwing money away. But if we don't know these numbers and we end up spending too much, like we spend, $90 or we spend $900 on a Facebook lead, and we don't, we spend $900 on Facebook and we get one lead, is that too much money? Yes, that's too much money. But if we spend $50 and we get a new client on Facebook, is that too much money? Based on these numbers, if that's the type of business I'm in, the answer is no. So we need to kind of have a good sanity check for how much money we're spending and what good it's going to do us. All right, let's move on to the next topic, assuming we can get our, I can get my screen working here. So Facebook, let's make sure we understand the nature of Facebook versus Google, because that's really important to make sure we don't spend too much money in one place or the other. So Facebook, and it'll apply to Google in the next piece here. Facebook is different from Google in that Facebook, when you see somebody looking at Facebook, they're seeing their feed and they see whatever they like cat videos or their political views or whatever it is, no matter what they are, I don't care, but they're seeing their feed and they see information. And because Facebook knows information about you, it's pretty scary that they know all this information about people. But because they have information that's good for you as a business owner, they can identify who is politically right, politically left, likes cheese, likes, fast cars, likes whatever. So that's why we like using Facebook, because they know information about people. They put an ad in there because of where they're located, what their demographics are, and what they know. And so then they see an ad. So this ad is more like a billboard. It's an ad that happens because the person meets criteria. That's Facebook. Google is, now not in all cases, and we'll talk about this when we get to Google, but Google, when you think about Google, generally it's because somebody did a Google search. And they search for, let's say they search for cheese. So they search for cheese, and there's going to be a few things here. There's going to be a map to cheese stores, I guess. And then there's going to be some pages about cheese that are down here. And then there's going to be some advertisements about cheese. If I can figure out how to keep my screen switching, I apologize about that, everybody. So there's going to be something that says ad, and then there's going to be another list of things about cheese. And these are called sponsored ads. So up here, these results are listed because somebody was specifically looking for cheese. So when I hear people say, well, Facebook works for me, Google doesn't, or Google works for me, Facebook doesn't, it could be because of this reason, that Google is giving you results because somebody was looking for Google, looking for you. They were looking for cheese in this case. In Facebook, if they saw an ad for cheese, it would be because maybe people that watch certain things or look at certain listings or certain demographics are interested in cheese, and so they'd show an ad. Or if you were a business that sold cheese, you might want to get business from people that, you know, maybe it was a certain gender between the ages of 30 and 40. That might be the group that you'd want to get. So this would be something that you would show. This ad here on Facebook is going to get shown because they match some market. Now, this is going to be really important in a second. The Google would be because they matched a keyword. Okay, so they matched a keyword, and theoretically, that keyword would mean they were looking for you. Okay, so what does this mean? What does this mean for us not throwing away money? Because that's our topic. So what it means for us not throwing away money is that, first of all, how should we think about advertising on Facebook? So Facebook is great for a couple of things. One thing they're really great about is they're great at asking you for money. So one way we throw away money is doing it yourself. So a couple ways Facebook asks you for money that you need to watch out for. One is they give you gifts. So they'll give you like $100 credit, or they'll give you little credits. And this sounds really negative, but it's almost like a drug dealer trying to give you drugs. That's the metaphor that I think of, kind of. So you try a little bit of the Facebook marketing, and you can't really tell with $100 whether or not it's working for you or not. So you have to try a little more to see if it's going to work. So the idea is a good idea that, you know, you want to do some advertising for your business and you want to get some results, and Facebook seems like the big thing, right? I mean, everybody talks about Facebook, or at least the idea is to talk about Facebook. And so you try some advertising, and that's true of other businesses too. Google does that, Instagram does that, and you might get credits. So it seems like a good idea, again, because it's free. Now you're set up. Now it's easy to keep on trying it. It makes it easy to keep going. Sounds familiar. That's why I use the drug analogy. The other thing that they do is they hit you up sometimes when you do a post, and you'll get a reminder to boost the post. I've talked to many business owners that said, well, yeah, I'm doing Facebook advertising. What are you doing on Facebook advertising is what I ask. And they say, well, yeah, I'm boosting posts. We've hardly ever seen boosted posts get results. What ends up happening almost all the time is I ask the question like that. I say, well, what are you doing for Facebook? They're saying they boosted posts. And what ends up really happening is that they are getting results on their website. People say they've Googled them or they found them online. And because they're spending money for those boosted posts, they assume that the results came in from the boosted post, the thing that they've spent money on. So it's a little bit of a mistake. They've spent $100 on their boosted post or $50 on their boosted post, and they happen to get a couple hits on their website, and they feel like it must be from that money that they spent, because that's where they spent money. So it's almost never true. The other place is in do-it-yourself. So credits, it's almost never enough to really do a full test. The boosted post, in most cases, it's not all cases, but in most cases, this won't help you much. The other ones that don't help much is they're setup wizards. And I'll call it that, but it's not necessarily the name that they use for it now. But when they help you set up an ad, so they suggest ads, they give you graphics or upload. They can even make pretty compelling looking ads when you set up your ad design. our experts, when they do this, they're almost never using the ads that the Facebook automated system uses. They're using ads from photos that they're creating or they're getting from other sources that they pay money for. So professionals with Facebook will, number one, is what I'm getting to, will spend money on their photos. They'll spend money on their most of their content that they put in the ad, whether that's the creative text that they're using and the headlines that they're using and the photos that they're using. So now let's get to using an agency. So using an agency or somebody to do this. Now we see lots and lots of these in the different niches and businesses we work with, and we do Facebook marketing for people too. So do it yourself usually doesn't work. And so some things you need to think about when you're working with an agency and where you might be using extra money. One thing is that Facebook marketing is a lot more work than other types of marketing. Google advertisements a little bit easier. Facebook marketing requires a lot more testing and running than Google does in general. So it's got to be checked and checked and checked and tested, and Google does too. So if the agency's charging like almost nothing to do it, or like a one-time setup fee, and they're not charging very much per month, you've got to be kind of suspicious. They're either, number one, getting their fee from this marketing spend that you think you're spending on Google. If you're spending $500 a month, they must be taking some of that, or they're not doing much testing, or they're not doing it very well because they're not getting paid very much for it. So it does require quite a bit of work if you're doing it right, which is why doing it yourself probably won't work, because it's kind of a full-time job to keep up to speed with what the different algorithms are with Facebook. So you can spend money on Facebook, but if it isn't done properly, and we'll talk about what properly means, if it isn't done properly, then your money can be spent, but you won't get clicks or leads from it. You won't get people seeing your impression, which is what you're going to see on Facebook, and then getting leads from it. Let's see if there's anything else on my list. Okay, no, that's the main things on my list. So to do great ads, let's talk about, so we talked about a few things here. To do great ads, what you need to make sure, and this is going to apply, we'll repeat this a couple times here as we do this. You need to make sure that you have a few things. One is, especially for Facebook, is what's your market? So what's your market? Who are you going to market to? And in Facebook, what this is going to amount to is interest levels. So you have to pick your demographics and your geographics. So demographics means, and most of you guys know this, but let me make sure I repeat it for thoroughness. Demographics is going to mean, with Facebook, you can pick interest levels. So if I was marketing to people that like fast cars, I would make sure that I market to people that have interest levels in cars, interest levels in racing, but probably not racing like on the track. And in Facebook, you can pick out different interests. So you'd pick out different interests and different, it's not called exactly that, but you pick out different interests and different things that people might be interested in. And Facebook will help with what type demographic, the niche that you're going to be marketing to. The tighter the niche, the more focused the environment is. What we see a lot of people do, and what we see a lot of agencies do, is they broaden that niche and they broaden the geographic. So in other words, let's say you're a business that's located at a street corner, and you generally get most of your business from about a 5-mile radius. What the agency will do is say, well, no, we want to get you more leads. So let's make this radius 12 miles. And when they make the radius 12 miles, sure enough, you get a lot more leads, but most of it is not going to be useful to you. Or they say, well, let's make the demographics bigger. So in other words, they instead of just narrowing the interest down to, maybe if you're working with something in the kids market, households with kids or moms with kids or something like that, something that would tighten up the demographics, they just make it people in a certain age range, or broaden the demographics out. So it might be a tighter geographic range, but it may be a lot more people that might meet the criteria that it's going to market to. Now you're going to, again, get a lot more people, but it's not going to be the market you want. And so you're going to have to filter through a ton more calls to be able to get the same amount of a number of leads that are going to be profitable to you. And guess what? You're paying for all those. So you're throwing all that money away to market to people that in the end, you're also spending more call time with, and you're spending more frustration with, because you're answering a lot of calls, setting a lot of appointments, and you're or whatever, you're responding to a lot of email, or in spending a lot of work to process a lot more leads. So you want your niche and your to be as tight as possible, not too tight, but as tight as what's reasonable, so that you get your lead flow appropriate. Okay, and we'll come back to what appropriate is here in a second. So the other piece is that you need to think about is the message. The message should be specific to the niche. That makes a lot of sense now that I just said what I just said a second ago. So the message needs to be assertive and appropriate to the niche. And most of the time when we look at ads, a lot of the message is either too general and broad. Come on in and if it was for a health club, come on in and lose some weight, or just, get in the best shape of your life. Those are pretty broad and general. So it would need to be something more specific. If I was marketing to, people in a more, hopefully we're still connected here, to my my marker. But if I was marketing to people in a more, less, I think we lost our marker here, so I'll just have to talk for a second. If we were marketing to people in a tighter niche, we want to have the message speak to them more tightly. Okay, the third thing is going to be making sure our demographics, our media that we're using, in this case, Facebook, are also going to be appropriate and connected to the market and the message. So the media, in this case, specifically Facebook, is going to be the correct media used. Now, some markets, Facebook works well. So we work with a lot of martial arts schools. Facebook can work pretty well. Sometimes it may not in certain areas. With other industries, Facebook doesn't work very well. We've tried it with chiropractors. We've tried it with other industries, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So the media needs to be tested, and to have the blanket statement, does that media work in this industry, is really poor and not very thorough marketing. It needs to be tested to see if it works, and if it doesn't, if we've tried making sure our message is right and our market's right, then the media may not be the appropriate one. Okay, so we're going to stop sharing for a second here so I can make sure I get the all the rest of the content in and get our pen working again. And for the people watching on our recording, will be just a slight delay here as we're connecting back up. Okay. And we're back in business here. Okay, so as we said, this is the media. So all these three things interact. The media in this case is Facebook. And it may or may not be the right media for you for your particular business or market. All right, now let's talk about AdWords. Now remember, AdWords, the difference is that we're marketing to specific searches, or it's going to show up. Google AdWords is for specific searches. Now there's a couple things about Google AdWords. AdWords in one generation is going to be the search like I just mentioned. Like it'll be the search that you're really used to when you search for plumbers. There's a map, there's stuff down here, and then stuff up here, which is the ads. Another place that Google AdWords comes out in, or the Google network, is called the display network. And this is a whole bunch of properties owned by Google. In fact, YouTube, and it's worth making this its own item. YouTube is owned by Google. So when you see ads on YouTube, this possibly could be an appropriate marketing tool for you. It could be appropriate media, but it may not be. So for most of our businesses that we work with, this type of marketing with ads, and this is specifically AdWords, although when you run AdWords, it also will allow you to run ads in the display network. So mostly these ads, the ones that show at the top of the regular search results, are the ones that we are referring to. So one way people throw away money is they think, well, gee, these ads seem pretty cool because in the display network, there's all these other properties that Google owns that you can display your ads on, maybe even YouTube. And I can put my ad up here and it'll have a nice little picture or video. And then my ads there. Won't videos be paid attention to more? And the answer is, well, yeah, videos are paid attention to more than text. Isn't that great? And it's true. However, these may not be, and again, for most of our customers, mostly these are not found more than this. People are searching more for, let's say, cheese, for example. Well, maybe that's a bad example. But, let's say I used the example of martial arts schools before because we have a lot of customers in that industry. If they're searching for kids' activities, they're not looking on, let's say, YouTube for kids' activities. They're looking at Google itself, a Google search for kids' activities. If they were looking on YouTube, they'd be looking for a video to watch to have a kid's activity, not for lessons in a brick and mortar business for kids' activities. So Google searches would be the appropriate place for you to be residing. Now, if you were a business that sold online classes for kids, YouTube would be an appropriate place for you to have some teaser videos that would be free, 10-minute videos that would maybe sell your hour-long videos. So see, it depends on what type of product you're selling, whether the media makes some sense. But very, very frequently, all you need to do is check a box and you start displaying your ads on the display network. Well, check a box and do a few other things. So what will happen is either agencies will try to sell, well, spend some more money and you can be on this extra network, or spend some more money and you can be on YouTube, when it sounds exciting, but it isn't really useful for you. For some businesses, it is. For many, many, many other businesses, it's not. The other way, so that's one way that we end up throwing money away. So that will hopefully explain it. The other thing that happens with Google is also great at asking you for money. So Google is great at giving you $100 credits. So Google will say, we'll send you a coupon and say, hey, start an account with us and we'll give you $100 credit and we'll give you all the marketing help you want to do an ad. Well, that is fine. And they do give you really good marketing help. But if you're going to look through all the directions on how to use Google AdWords, that would probably be about a full-time job. So to use all the tools that they would they would give you, you would have to be on that constantly, and you have to test your ads very frequently. So the do-it-yourself, you can certainly do that. Some people do, and that's fine. It just is going to be a very, very time-consuming job. So a couple of the things that may be costing you money is making sure your keywords are too broad. Now, this goes back to what we just mentioned here. I'll just draw it earlier. Your market needs to be as tight a niche as makes sense. So that means your demographics and your geographics. So demographics, geographic niching is really important. And then the message is important. That means your ad that you put in Google AdWords needs to be something significant. And the nice thing is with Google, we can test just hundreds and hundreds of ads. So with our experts, they put in lots and lots of ads that will hopefully work. But what we know is that when the ads get rotated, we can determine whether or not they work. Google rotates the ads for us. So we set them up so there's lots and lots of ads, and then we test. We test and test and test and test. So the message then, whether we think a message is good or not, isn't really relevant. We're going to do our best guess at selecting a message, our educated guess that we use, and then we test and test and test. And then, in this case, the media is Google, and see if it works or not. And we've had really, really good success with Google as a more consistent, reliable tool to use for marketing. Facebook is less consistent. Google's more consistent, but we do see people throwing money away, as this is all titled, because they're not following some of these rules. They're not doing appropriate ads. The keywords are too broad, so they're not getting the right people coming to their, in other words, when they're coming to the search page, and the people, the search terms or the keywords. So let's say you were searching for shoes and you were selling shoes to especially for people with diabetes, and they have special kind of shoes for people with diabetes, and you were buying the search term shoes. Well, now you're getting everybody that looks for track shoes and looks for specialized shoes for rock climbing and specialized shoes for that, and also fitness shoes and all kinds of shoes. So now you bought that keyword shoes saying, well, I better get everybody, and maybe they look for my shoes for people with diabetes. Well, now you're buying these keywords, you're throwing money away on this very, very broad keyword. And we don't want we don't want too specific or too narrow. We want it to be the right perfect niche for us, and by all the keywords that are very specific to us. Okay. And that includes geographically too. If you're a store that they have to drive to buy product, fine. If you're a store that can work nationwide, then tighten your demographics as much as possible, so what they're looking for, and then expand your geographics as far as possible. It again depends, and we help you with how this works. So we'll help you with all this. Okay, we're going to run out of time here if I don't get moving. So a couple other things I wanted to mention. The other is there's a lot of this kind of business, like shiny objects. Some of those are in all industries, may or may not work, like LinkedIn. In some industries, it works great. In some industries, it's a waste of money. It's a complete waste of money. And it's the same idea. Even in the industries that it can work great, you have to match the market niche, the market with the message and with the right media. So this may or may not be the right media. Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, we get a lot of people. We get a lot of people talking to us about TikTok. For some people, this becomes a good advertising platform. For many people, it's not. So in most cases, it won't help at all. In some cases, it could blow you up. It could just be explosive for you. So we have to find the right ones for you, or we help you find the right ones that'll work for you. And this is really critical because otherwise you're wasting not just money, but even more valuable, your time. Okay, so let's just wrap up here with the principles that you need to follow. So some of the principles that we need to follow, as we talked about before, is we need to figure out the right market. And it needs to be as tight a niche. And these could be multiple niches. You may have a business where you work with kids and you work with families. So those might be two different niches. You might have a business where you work with people in their 50s and 60s that are retired ex-Navy, Naval Academy graduates. And you might, at the same time, work with people that are just graduating doctors that are going into their profession for the first 5 years. You may have a couple of those niches, and you can market to both of them. But when you have those kind of things, you don't want to market to everybody. We have a lot of people that we work with, maybe that work in investment advising, and we talk to them and they say they want everybody from 50 years old and up that has $500,000 of investable assets. Well, okay, that's kind of like a lot of people, and your message is not going to speak to anybody, because then the next thing is the message. And when you send a message out, whether it's an ad in AdWords or ad in Facebook, and it says, hey, if you're have $500,000 in investable assets, come and talk to me. That doesn't really say anything. But if you say, I'm the guy that works with Naval Academy graduates that are getting ready to retire, and because you have these specific things that you're worried about, that speaks to that person. You may be thinking, well, yeah, but I need more clients than that. Well, yeah, but you're going to get all of those, or you're going to get a lot of those. So now you're going to be capturing that whole market. Then if you need more, you grab another market. But if you try to be everything to everybody, you're going to be nothing to nobody. That's an important rule. So market, niche, message, and what media you're using. And when I put media here, it's probably should be what media you're using, and are you using it the correct way? And so that's what we've hopefully gone over really thoroughly today, is using Facebook and Google the correct way. And if we do it for you, that's great. If you're the agency that does it for you is doing it great, that's awesome. If they're not, we'd be happy to help you. Or if you're doing it yourself, we'd be happy to help you. Or we'd be happy to help you when you meet with us. And again, you can go on the chat and set up a time with us. Or if you're watching this in a recorded version, then you can click on the link that we have on the page here and set up a time to talk to me, and then we'll go over what you're doing now and what we suggest that you can help with. And there's no obligation; you don't have to work with us at all after that. So that would be fine if you want to spend some time, and we'll help you with what you're doing if you're doing it yourself as well. So helping with this, that's one principle. The other principle is know your ROI. So your lifetime client value, and what your return on investment is going to be. Those are really important principles. The last one that we didn't really spend much time on is you need multiple marketing methods. So the last thing is you can't survive in any business having one thing that works really well. So if this helps you with making sure your website's good and you do really good with, let's say, Google AdWords, because you've listened to this and it's working like gangbusters and you're getting plenty of clients and it's working really well, one day that might not work. One day it might not be as successful. You need to have enough marketing going on. We generally recommend at least 20 things going on at any given time. And that may seem like a lot because maybe right now you're only doing one. 20 things is a healthy business, because if one thing doesn't work, something else will work and you will have a healthy business. When the pandemic hit a while ago, the people that were doing 20 things were still successful, because even though they couldn't do certain things, other things still work. They had some fallback positions. And the truth is, that's what happens all the time. There's always stuff that will work and will not work. So even though we're helping you with making these things work, and even though we're really good at getting all the marketing that we help people with work, there's still going to be things sometimes that don't work. So always having multiple marketing methods so that you get a consistent flow of leads is one big principle. So knowing your ROI, market message, media match, and then having multiple marketing things going on at all times are the three big principles that'll help you with getting big success all the time. So let's wrap up here. And the last thing is have us do this for you. And I'll post the in the chat for everybody the link for us to work with you. Again, you can just set up a time. There's no cost or any obligation or anything to work with us. If you do this, though, you get the free Kickstart package that we gave you. This is a website review. We want to make sure your website's in good position so that you get everything done right with your Google and Facebook, that everything down below is going to work as well. So this helps you with design and content and lead generation. And you get $350 in direct marketing. We'll help you with that too to get you started. And that's a lot better than what Google and Facebook give you for free. You get our Deciding to Decide book that was written by Tracy Thomas, the founder of Rep Marketing, and I helped with it too. And you get to also, we recommend you come to the next Boost Your Marketing webinar. There's no cost for that. It's the third Wednesday of the month. You can get registered for that now and get ready to grow your business. So that's the wrap up. Make sure that you set up time to come to our to work with me. The link's on the page here so you can get going. So just to wrap up, the fundamentals are making sure you have the marketing principles. So everything has a market, media, message match. Got to test and measure everything, have 20 things going on all the time, make sure there's lots of stuff happening, and make sure that your ROI is always in your head. So you know that you can measure and respond to what your marketing results are. Okay. And we'll see you at the next Boost Your Marketing webinar. Make sure you are there so that you can take the next steps to grow your business. And we'll look forward to seeing you.